Welcome back to the further adventures of the monad. We have arrived at our final recap in this series. Previously, we looked at envelopes and what they were made out of, tertiary matter. We looked at their form and function, and we discussed what they contained, in our case, secondary matter. Hopefully by now it is clear that all this complexity can be viewed in the context of an overarching goal. That goal is to facilitate the expansion of a monad's consciousness. This monad is not just us, but all the monads at all four stages of development: primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. All monads, whether consciously or unconsciously, are striving for the same goal, and that goal is governed by the laws of development. We are all compelled to move our game forward. In this diagram, we can see that the movement of the monad follows a path that is embedded in a series of cycles. The primary atom cycles 3 times around all 49 planes of matter. Secondary atoms descend from plane 43 down towards plane 48. Tertiary atoms then ascend from plane 49 back to plane 43, where they transform into quaternary matter and start to evolve from plane 49 back towards plane 43 and beyond. The monad now enters into a new set of cycles. The cycle of incarnation. This is where the monad moves between the mental plane and the physical plane in a series of births and deaths. What do I mean by this? Let's explain this by looking at what appears to be the most difficult example to model. Think of a monad that is vibrating in the mineral kingdom. Remember, this monad is actually embedded in atomic matter on the 43rd plane, as it is too energetic to enter the cosmic physical kingdom. To experience being a rock, it has to embed itself virtually in tertiary matter, on plane 49. The substrate of the rock is composed of tertiary atoms. Each mineral element at the atomic level houses a mineral monad. This monad comes into that structure and exists there for God knows how long, and then moves back into the group soul. This is located on the mental plane. The rock remains behind, as it is physical and has its own decay rate. In the same manner, a plant monad may be functioning in a branch of a tree that gets made into a chair. The wood is now dead, and the monad has cycled back to its group soul, but the chair remains. The monad at the mineral or plant level will then cycle back into another tertiary structure and slowly continue to wake up further. In the case of a mineral monad, all its envelopes of incarnation are shared with other mineral monads in its class. In the case of the plant monad, it has developed a personal etheric envelope, but shares its emotional and mental envelopes with its sister monads. When we arrive at the human monad, our cycles of incarnation are a complex affair. There is a need to build out a series of envelopes that collectively manifest a home for our monad to function through. This cycle of forming and dissolving these envelopes occurs tens of thousands of times and represents our own cycles of incarnation. Why do we need to repeat this process? The reason is that once we are gifted our causal envelope, we are unconscious in it. We need to wake up our monad by experiencing our environment objectively. The only place where we can do this initially is on plane 49. It so happens that in our case, we come all the way down to subplane 49-7. This is not the case for all the other evolving human monads in the fourth kingdom, on the other planets in our solar system. It has been explained why this has to be, due to our particular repulsive nature. Come we do, into these physical realms. And initially, while our monad is focused in the 49.1 permanent atom, only subplanes 49.5 to 49.7 are objectively visible to us. The emotional plane 48 is a dreamlike experience for our monad. After about 40,000 incarnations, we graduate our focus from the 49.1 permanent atom to the 48.1 permanent atom. The lower subplanes of the emotional world now become objectively accessible to us. This only occurs when we sleep. In reality, for most of the human monads at the 2 community stage of development, when they sleep, their emotional, mental, and lower causal bodies just hover beside the physical body. We have already discussed why the monad needs to evacuate its physical body regularly so the devas can repair the organism that we are borrowing. So, that is why we need to incarnate. We need to wake up and become self-aware. And to do this, we need to experience life objectively. We have 4 principal envelopes to help us achieve this. The physical organism is not one of them, but the etheric envelope is. This envelope exists to animate the organism, supplying it with energy and acting as a communication interface between the organism and the principal envelopes. The problem with the physical organism is that it has no capacity to do, feel, or think anything. These faculties reside in the higher principal envelopes, and the matter in these envelopes only perform these tasks if they are directly focused upon by the human monad. Here is a thought. You are sitting watching this presentation, and you can respond to it emotionally and mentally because you have these envelopes functioning to a certain degree. However, when we started our journey into the 4th kingdom of nature, we only had the capacity to objectively function in our physical body. This means that we had to build our mental and emotional bodies before we were able to practically use them. Even now, do you remember preparing your mental body for your latest incarnation? I suspect not. The fact is that we rely heavily on the devic stream. They manage our envelopes and most of our incarnational processes, allowing us to be able to do anything. This is an amazing partnership that at present is no partnership at all. We are well and truly sleeping partners. This does change, but not just yet. Even though we evolve consciously from the lowest plane of matter upwards, our starting point is the higher causal body. This resides at the top of the mental plane. So the mental and emotional envelopes have to be constructed for us. This allows us to get down to the physical etheric complex and start our evolutionary journey as human monads. Slowly, we begin to wake up our emotional and mental faculties and begin to refine them. Initially, they are completely entangled, and this creates an unholy mess. The very way these envelopes are presented implies a hierarchy, yet we start by only being able to objectively function in our physical etheric bodies. Later, we move to our emotional body. This is where most of us currently reside. This is where any thought, emotion, or action starts. Why is this a problem? If you initiate any action that is triggered by an emotional rather than a rational thought, you are bound to come unstuck, and we frequently do. The challenge is to move our emotional focus higher into our emotional bodies. This allows the igniting impulse to be based on higher emotions like love and compassion, rather than lower ones. I don't need to describe those. Eventually, we move our focus from the 48.1 permanent atom to the 47.4 permanent molecule. We now move into a much higher gear, and true rationality enters our lives. We think before we act. We rule our emotions rather than letting them rule us. Dare I say it, we are becoming human. Up until this point, we were human-animal hybrids. This is clearly exemplified by our 7 chakras. The lowest 3, the base, the sacral, and the navel, we share in common with animals. These, it may not surprise you to know, work automatically in all of us. It is the higher 4 chakras, the heart, the throat, the ajna, and the crown, that we need to activate. When we do, we are in a position to embark on the last phase of our journey through the 4th kingdom of nature, and we enter the final leg of our journey, the 5 enlightened phase. It has been quite a journey, and a lot of mechanics have been discussed in our further adventures. The stage has been set to begin to explore the discrete topics relating to the laws of life. We have a reasonably good idea of how things function the way they do. We know where we stand in the much larger scheme of things. The question that now could be asked is, what do we have to do to move our life forward? What conditionalities apply as we take each step? Answer to these questions will be discussed in the continuing adventures of the monad. See you then. Thank you very much.